Daniel Taylor writes, "Hey movie talkers, my question is about the nominees for Best Picture, specifically why there are only 9 of them. 2013 was such a stacked year with great movies. Why can't they just throw a Prisoners or an Inside Llewyn Davis in there just to even it out? Are any of you even OCD enough to care about this?"
Okay, here's the thing. I'm going to explain this the best that I can. But I'm going to tell you right now, even I do not have the most clear picture of it, so I'm sure I'm going to fail a little bit in how I explain this, but try to follow me if you can. You don't just throw the tag Academy Award nominee for Best Picture, just throw one in there. No, this is an honor that must be earned. Here's how this works. Here's how the Oscar voting process works, all right? And I'm sure, I wish Chris Tapley was here, a friend of ours who is an expert about Oscar season, but this is the best way to explain it. Try to follow me. Let's say you got like about 5,000 to 6,000 voting members of the Academy. For argument's sake, let's say 5,000, although it's probably closer to 6. 5,000 voting members. Every single member gets a vote. This is how they're establishing the nominees. Gets a vote, and they're asked to list number 1 through 5 of their top 5 films of the year. So they send their votes now into the Academy, all right? So now you got 5,000 votes. The Academy then takes those votes and they start creating piles. In other words, like number of votes that's going to go to Captain Phillips, number of votes that's going to go to Gravity, number of votes that's going to 12 Years a Slave. What happens from there is they have a formula. They take the number of votes divided by the number of potential nomination slots, which is 10 plus 1. So ultimately the number is 11. So they take 5,000 votes, divide that by 11, and they come up with a number, I think it's like 455. That's called the magic number, all right? My math is probably a little bit off here, but you know what I'm trying to say. Once a film gets 455 number 1 votes, that film automatically becomes nominated for Best Picture, all right? Any film that gets less than 1% of the votes, which in this case would be, for argument's sake, 50 votes. If there aren't at least 50 votes voting a movie for number 1, those movies are automatically disqualified from nomination. So now what you're left with is a bunch of movies. You got a pile over here that got that magic number, 455 or more. You got a bunch of movies that got over 1%, but under the 5% or whatever the number is, under the 10%. So then what you do is you take, this is where it gets really complicated, you take the number of movies that are already nominated. If any of them got like over 500 votes, you then look at what the number 2 on those ballots are. And those get counted as votes. Long and the short of it is, as you start to disqualify, so this ballot nominated Grown Ups 2 as the number 1 film of the year. Well, Grown Ups 2 did not get 1% of the vote, so scratch that off. Then you go down to what was number 2 on this guy's ballot. And number 2 on his ballot was 12 Years a Slave. Well, now this vote gets into the 12 Years a Slave pile. So what happens is, by the end, any film with over 250 votes, after you do that elimination process, any film with over 250 prescribing votes, they get a nomination. And that means the maximum number you can get is 10, but the minimum amount you can end up getting is 5. So that's why every year the nominees will be between 5 nominees and 10 nominees because the way the math breaks down. So the number 1 votes are obviously super important. you got to get those number 1 votes, and that's why you don't just then randomly say, oh, well, let's just round it out to 10. Let's pick some random film that didn't earn the spot and give it. Because then that's going to dilute the voting process too. You only want the Academy voters to then vote on the actual movies that earned a nomination spot and not dilute the process by adding films that didn't earn it. So I hope that clears it up a little bit. I know even the way I described it sounded really confusing, but that's the basic gist. I'm sure Chris Tapley's going to yell at me later when he watches this. But do you guys have anything you want to add to that at all?
Why is it so complicated?
It's really complicated and complex.
Oh my God, I have a headache.
All right, listen.
Take a grown-ups and subtract this, and some kind of weird mathematician.
But it works out.
No,
when you
I
actually
know.
look at how it shakes out, it actually is a pretty fair system. But
If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to AMC Movie News on YouTube. It's free and a great way to stay updated with all the latest movie news and check out our daily show, AMC Movie Talk. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter to stay in the loop for our special prizes, giveaways, and contests.